Hi everybody, Leslie here, back in my craft lab. I've got these two lovely cards for you today, both using similar colour palettes, both using little gnomes. I've got loads of tips and tricks for you. I'm going to show you how I rescued this background. I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it did. So you can see how I rescued this background because my glitter kept coming off, the method I'd used. So I'll show you that. Little stenciling techniques on my little gnomes, all that. And this one, it's a bit of a revisit of this card, which I did back when I was doing a bit of a Christmas in July series. So this is a star spinning card, spinning puzzle card. And although this works fine, I thought of a better way. So I've got a better way to redo this card, just so it doesn't get caught, because these have got straight edges. It doesn't matter for circles, but because these have got straight edges, if you've got anything even sticking up slightly, they might just get caught a little bit. So I've got a better way to do that. You do need to have a matching die though to make it possible. So I didn't have it for that card, but I do have a matching die for these little gnomes. So hopefully you'll be able to see this is a much smoother. So although it's really done in exactly the same way, there's nothing for it to get caught on. So it's much smoother. So I'll show you how I did that. So it's a little bit of a revisit to my spinning puzzle cards and how you can make it smoother so nothing gets caught if you're sticking die cuts on the top. So that's what I've got for you today. Also, I've got two of these lovely stencils from Skull and Crossbuns. So if you've not already subscribed and you'd like to be in with a chance of entering my giveaway, I think when I get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway for this stencil and anything else that I can find that I've got two of in my stash, which might be 2 or 3 things that I can think of off the top of my head. So I've got a few doubles of some stamps and things. So when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway, and it'll be selected from people who have subscribed to me who comment on a video that will be coming up whenever I hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you're not already subscribed, please do. That would be fantastic. All of us little creators, we really appreciate it, and we do a little happy dance every time somebody subscribes to our channel. So I'll show you what I've done today, and thanks for watching in advance. I said I want to use all of these lovely backgrounds that I made the other day. So I've got this one, and I was thinking about making this into a puzzle card, but I think because the glitter isn't really well encapsulated, this was using a structure paste and some glitter that I had in my stash. And I should have pressed it more into the structure paste, but I was worried because it's white structure paste that the glitter would have disappeared. I don't think it would have done, and I should have put some acetate on and pressed it in better. But because I didn't, but I still want to use this and not go to waste, the glitter's not the best encapsulated. So I think if I started chopping this up, or if I tried to make it into a spinning puzzle card, I think too much of the glitter would come off. So I wanted to make a card that's not going to get too much messing with it, if that makes sense. I'm going to stick with the same colour palette. So I just pulled out of my stash a red and green pad. This is just a 6x6 pad, just so that I can show you a different way to do the spinning puzzle card. And we'll just do a basic card with this one. I'm using, these are Crafter's Companions. These are the Gnome Boy and the Gnome Girl. They're from a couple of years ago. They're from Nature's Garden. And these came with the stamps, the dies to cut out a few of the stamps. So they've got little hands so you can add parcels if you want to. And they have a little stencil as well, so you can colour in, you can add stripes. And I'm going to show you a trick to do that. So I've got the little boy and the little girl, and I've just really quickly coloured them in. And if you've already seen my video with the little elf, I've literally used the same 4 tri-blend markers. So if you want to know which ones they are, head back and watch that video. And I just did that because they were out on my desk and they're Christmassy colours, and I had some Christmassy paper and I had red glitter, so it kind of worked. I'm going to start, I think, with the basic one, and then we'll go on and make the star card a little bit later. Right, the first thing I want to show you is how I got this fab spotty effect. And I'm hoping it shows up on camera. This is all done after the colouring, but it has some sort of reaction, even though it's alcohol ink. It's kind of got a darker circle around the outside of the spots on her, and they're shiny. So this is the stencil that came with her little set, and I'm just going to use the same spotty one because it's already got ink on it. So all I did was get that lined up, and I've got my white pigment ink. I think this would work with any brand white pigment ink. I happen to have the Eyes ink, so it's the Aladdin Eyes ink one, but I'm assuming this will work with any white pigment ink that you happen to have in your stash. So just let me make sure her spots are lined up. And I've got a blending brush and I have it labelled white pigment, so I only ever use this for white pigment ink. Which that looks pretty cool already. She's, you know, nice and white spotty, but hopefully you can see I've managed to get ink around the edges. I didn't mask because I know that I'm going to cut her out in a minute. So I've just got my Wow Clear Gloss regular embossing powder. Nothing exciting going on, but I thought it was a really cool look. Yeah, I caught all that. That it seemed to react with the ink, and it hasn't done it yet. So it must be something when you heat it. So hopefully you can see now, if I can get my camera to focus and some good light on it. There's kind of like a little aura around the little dots. I'm hoping you can see that on camera. So it does some strange thing where it reacts, and it just looks like you've spent hours putting dark shading around those little dots, where all you've done is really, really fast stencil and heat emboss. So I'm actually just going to go and do the other two on the two little chaps. So I thought I'd show you what I'm doing. This isn't my trick. I think Gina K uses this trick, and this is a way to make sure, if you've done like I've done and I just freehand stamped a load and went off and coloured them, this is a good way to make sure your die cut is lining up with your stamped image. So I've just got some scrap card. As you can see, it's an old tatty piece. Doesn't need to be anything fancy, but you want something that's a little bit thick. It doesn't need to be really thick. Paper will work. It's just a bit harder. And the first thing you want to do is just die cut your image out of your little piece of scrap. So I'm just using my little tiny baby die cut machine so I can put it on camera so you can see what I'm doing. And the piece you want is actually the outline. So I'm just going to do the same with our little girl while we're here. Because I'm using my baby die cut machine, I obviously need to make these so that they'll fit on the plates to start with. So what you do is you get your piece and you line him up so that he sits nicely around your die cut. Tape it in its best position, and then you drop your die back in on top. And I've just got my washi tape off to the side there, and it should drop in like a puzzle piece and cut exactly around it where you want it. And there he is. Here, there's a nice border all around. So I'm just going to pop and cut the rest of them out. There we go, nice even border. Works pretty well. And of course, once you've got one set of these cut out, you can keep reusing these and reusing these. Just put it in the storage with your stamps. I think I'm going to die cut this because it's not square on the card. Let's use this one. And I think to make our background match our little guys, I will get some card and colour it to match. So I'm just going to go with my biggest square, and just to make it match in, I've got, because my daughter got them for Christmas when she was about 8 years old, the original Spectrum Noir, as well as some of the tri-blends. So these were my daughter's Christmas present one year, and these ones have got a bullet nib and a chisel tip, and these should be roughly the same colour. So I'm thinking that the one I used is a bit darker, but I think this looks like probably the middle colour, which is actually DR3. Yeah. See, it's interesting. So it's closer to the middle colour. So, but I wanted the chisel tip, and I'm just going to make my red cardstock a bit darker, which is easier with the chisel. And it's easier starting off with the red than it is starting on white. You won't use as much ink. And this is just cheap red card that I've had in my stash for quite some years. So if you don't have a cardstock to match, this is another way. Use up your craft stash. See what you've got that you can make your colour darker. So now it actually blends, well, it should blend pretty well with my coloured images, and it looks better, I think, with my glitter. Stick this down flat onto here. And because my wet glue's just run out, I'm going to take a deep breath and hope that I can stick this right pretty much first time, because I've used permanent tape. And the glitter's still coming off. I'm still trying to think of a way that I could get that to stay on that structure paste, because look, it's still shedding all over me. It is really ultra fine glitter. It's the art glitter, and it really is ultra fine, so it does come off and go everywhere. And the only thing I can think of is to put something like UT, which is the ultra thick heat embossing, over the top of it. Should we have a go? See what happens? To get embossing powder to stick, you don't actually need sticky ink. It just needs to be something that's going to make it stick for long enough for you to get your embossing powder to stick to it. So this could go horribly wrong. So I've just got a clean, really cheap, I think these were from Primark, which if you're not in the UK, that's a really cheap shop that sells clothes and makeup and stuff in the UK. But I've just got water on a really cheap makeup sponge, just in case I ruin it. So all I'm going to do, and it's going to go on my background as well because I've stuck it down, should have done this before I stuck it down, is put water all over this in an effort to get my embossing powder to stick, and then it will encapsulate the glitter. So you're either watching a genius at work, or it's all about to go horribly wrong. It is damp. I can see that it's damp. This is just the Wow clear embossing powder. And I just have, this is just an old placemat, one of the cork back ones, so that I can put things flat. So, moment of truth. Yes, I think it's worked. Now, I haven't got it really even on there, so I'm actually going to have another go at that. So actually, I've ended up with really quite a cool effect. So if you think of like a sugary sweet, I'm hoping the camera picks it all up. It's actually got quite a still shiny but even on the white bits, because I use the water rather than a really smooth ink, it almost looks like, you know, like sugar melted on the top. But much, much better. The glitter is pretty well encapsulated. So even though there is glitter in between, it's kind of encapsulated. It's not coming off anymore, which is what I was going for. And I quite like the uneven shiny bits in the border because it kind of echoes that kind of sugar on sweets kind of feel. So I've just got my 6-inch square. These happen to be Hobbycraft ones. I am just going to run this through my die cut machine just between 2 sheets of copy paper, just because the heat has made it like a banana. So I'm just going to flatten it back out. So that's the side that was facing, white's rubbish on camera, sorry, it makes it phase. That's the side that was facing it, and you can see there's a tiny bit of glitter come off, but nothing like what was coming off it before. This is just a stitched banner die. This is sized to fit from the Girl Gnomes stamp. There is a stamp that says Merry Christmas from our gnome to yours. So if you like a little punny stamp, this banner die is an old one, and I had one cut out left in the packet. Yeah, happy with that. So I'm just going to assemble all this. And there we go. That one's all done. Now, do as I say, not as I do. If I had some wet glue to hand, I would have put a bit on the back of that foam tape, mainly because it's going on over the top of like glitter and embossing powder, and it's going over lots of texture. But mine's just run out, so I haven't got any to hand. I am going to have to go and search for some. I know I've got some. I just need to go find it. But yeah, if you were going to use foam tape, I would put a little bit of glue on the back if you're going over lots of texture like this. So yeah, that one came together quite quickly if I hadn't had to make the glitter sit in the background. But that's just a nice basic card, just using stuff, using up things. So stencil I'd never used. These stamps I used a couple of years ago on Christmas cards. Red cardstock that's been in my stash for years. I'm just using things like alcohol markers just to bring everything together, match the colour. It's a good way to use up all those strange colours you might have of cardstock. So let's get on with it and do the star one. So for our spinning star puzzle card, okay, I've done a lot of pre-prep so that we can get through this quite quickly. I've picked my paper, so I've just gone with this nice starry background because I'm doing a star card, and my little people looked quite nice on it, a nice bit of contrast. And I pre-cut stars from red card, and I've done some green card, but my green, as you can see, is the wrong tone. So the same trick, I've just gone in with a marker and coloured it really, really, really fast. I'm not too worried about it being really even. You'll only ever see this when you're spinning the puzzle around, and you won't notice if it's not the most even. So it really is really quick way just to darken my cardstock just enough so that it's the right tone. Now if I sit it on my paper, it'll go a bit lighter because the alcohol's still evaporating out of that. So I've got all my layers ready, and if you've never made a spinning puzzle card before, you generally speaking need 2 of every size that you want to use. I've got my star dies. In my particular set, I've just used the largest and then skipped one down to the smallest size that I had. So I've got another set that's one down from that. So that's my whole set of star dies. These happen to be stitched edge. They don't need to be stitched edge. In fact, it might look better if they're not a stitched edge. So I've got my 2 little people ready. I've got my paper ready. It was just a piece out of this, and this is actually a 15 by 15 centimetre pad rather than 6 by 6, so it's just very slightly under a 6-inch square. So the first thing we want to do is cut out, using our dies that exactly match the image we want to use, out of our pattern paper. And the reason that I want to do that is I want them to drop into my patterned paper so that we don't end up with quite so much of this issue where I stuck the die cut on the top of the paper. And by the way, this doesn't matter really for circles because your edges don't catch, but anything that's not a smooth, flat, straight circle, so if you were using like the rick-rack circles that I know Sam Calcutt's used, you'd end up with a similar issue because things might catch. So on this one, this little piece here keeps getting caught, and that's just because I've got the thick cardstock stuck on top of my pattern paper, so anything that's got an edge is getting caught on it. So we're going to drop our die cuts down into our pattern paper. So I want these to be roughly in the middle. I'm going to put this on a 6 by 6 card. I'm going to save the outer edge, but I want them to overlap just a tiny bit in the middle. So I'm going to take this just to my big die cut just off screen, cut my boy die out roughly in the middle here, and then I'll come back and cut my girl die out. It'll make sense in a moment. So that's my boy die cut out. And this is my girl die. So I'm just overlapping her a bit so she stands in the middle with him and they don't look like they're not friends. So now when we pop these into here, they'll actually drop in to the patterned paper and it'll be much, much smoother. So that's why I did that. So hopefully you can see that they're dropping back in there and that's much smoother. But of course, we need to stick this to something. So this is really, really thin copy pattern paper. So all I'm going to do, this is just some copy paper that's been through my printer that decided to print gobbledygook. So I'm just going to stick this onto just a sheet of copy paper. Can be stuff you've used. But I'm going to make sure I get a really good coating on the back of glue or double-sided. So this is the stick it adhesive, which is the nice thin adhesive. It's not the thick stuff. And the reason I want nice thin double-sided adhesive is because I do need to die cut it through this. And some of the adhesives, they get a little bit too thick. So I'm just going to cut a 6 by 6 square because I know that's the size that I'm after. So I've just used the Stick It double-sided to stick everything to my thin piece of copy paper. So that's all on there. So I'm just going to trim it back out. So I already know that my paper wasn't quite 6 by 6, so I didn't worry and just trimmed a little bit more off. So now that's going to sit on my 6 by 6 card with a nice white thin border around it. So to make your spinning puzzle card, you need to stick your nesting dies, whatever shape you're using, this applies to any shape, you need to stick them with even spacing together with tape that you know won't rip your paper once it goes through a die cut machine. So I know I've got my nice really low tack washi tape, but because this is going to go through a few layers and there might be a bit more pressure, I am, even with my washi tape I know is pretty good, I'm just going to put some this is just embossing powder, the anti-static that you'd use if you were going to do heat embossing, just to remove some of the stick so that I don't end up ripping this. So I want to cut this out of the middle, and some of my gnome is going to stay on the paper So it's hanging off the edges, and then some of it's going to be on the stars. So I'm just deciding, I think I want the star in the middle, or should we? Actually, I think I'm going to put the star up a bit, and then I'm going to stick a greeting down here. So it's going to look a little bit unbalanced because it's not in the centre, but if we stick a greeting at the bottom, it will be fine. So I'm just going to check that I'm happy with where that's sat, and then I'm just going to die cut it. So there we go, we've got our back piece, which I'm going to stick flat onto my card. We've got our image cut into layers. Now, I'm hoping that you can see why this is different, that this is much smoother. So where the die cut is on top of the pattern paper, which is all on top of the copy paper, it's kind of set back into it. So it's not going to get caught like my original version did. So I've got all these layers, and the way you make a spinning puzzle card is you need to stick each of these pieces onto one that's the same size. Okay, and we're going to do a hidden brad. So for your center one, you need a spare one. So to make this the same thickness, you still need to stick it down, and this is the point where you need to choose what colours you want sticking out. So what I would tend to do is drop one of these in, and the red's all disappeared now on this. So when this spins, if I stick this to the red and put this in, everything's going to look very green because it's going to be in here. So what you can do is reverse it. So we could, because I've done a red set and a green set, stick this on the green and drop the red in here, so that when this is spinning, sorry, and the large one, we've dropped the red in there. So when this is spinning, we'd have the red sticking out. Can you see the difference? So you need to choose what colour you want your layer to be and what colour to stick on the back. So the back ones that you're sticking to could just be all white. They don't need to be coloured. They can be any colour. It'll only ever show just a tiny bit on the edge. So I'm quite liking the red sticking out on that layer. So let's do it that way. So we've got the contrast. When this spins out of place against the green background, we'll have the contrast with the red. But I'm actually thinking I might want to alternate. So if we put green in here on this one, and this one, we need to drop the red one in. Then this one, we need to drop the green one in. So hopefully you can see now that when this puzzle is out of place, it's got alternating red, green on the layers, and then the top one doesn't matter because you won't see it. So I'm going to stick all these together. So leaving the back one for a minute, all I have to do is put glue all around these and then drop my layer in. So as you can see, I've got my background all stuck down ready, and we need to find a way to put our hole in the middle. Now, I've said this in loads of my spinning puzzle card videos before. The easiest way I've found is to use the Crocodile Big Bite. I did just check on the normal Crocodile because I know probably more people have got this one, and the reach here, I can't quite, which is about 1 inch I think, I can't quite get it to the middle of this set of stars. it's possible maybe if you went down a size that you'd be able to get into the middle. But the reach on this, I didn't have one of these to check before, and I've got this one now. You need obviously less than an inch to reach into the middle. So if you've only got this as a means of making holes, just make sure that the size of nesting dies you use, you can still reach into the middle. Or you can make lots of templates and do one at a time and just poke your hole through anything you can't reach with like a pokey tool or something like that. So there is ways to do it if you don't have a Crocodile Big Bite. Now, we need to find the centre of this. So you need your largest die, and you just need to cut a piece of copy paper. This is just the offcut from the other piece I've used. So we've got our template, and it's the same size as the largest star that we've used. So any time that you've got something that's got lines of symmetry, you can always find the centre. All you need to do is fold it in half in one direction, which is really easy with these stars because the points should all match up nicely. And give yourself a nice firm crease. And then open it back out. So we know that that goes down the centre. And then you can pick either of the other two directions and do the same thing. Get your points all nicely matched up. Fold it in half. And then where they cross, that's the centre. And if you want to be sure, if you're using a star like this one, you can always just fold it on your third direction, match it up. The same thing again, make sure it's all matched up, and then that's your centre point. So all I do is poke yourself a nice little hole in the middle there. So I've got a tiny little hole. All I need to be able to do is get my pencil through that. Now, I don't want to have a brad sat in the middle of this, so I'm going to do the hidden brad technique. So I need an extra star that's the same size as my middle one. And it will all become clear why that is in a second. You want to get everything lined up. If you want, reuse a bit of temporary tape just to hold everything together whilst you're doing all this. So everything's all lined up, sat as neatly as you can get it in the solved position. Then put your template over the top, line up all your points, and then put a little pencil dot in your centre hole. And as long as you can see it, that's all you need. Hopefully the camera can see that. And as I said, this is the easiest way I've found. I've just got my Crocodile Big Bite and I can go through them all in one go. So now I've got a hole all the way through the middle. So if you didn't have something that could go through everything in one go, as I said, what I'd do is make a template for each size, find the centre, and you can poke through with just a pokey tool or whatever on each layer. So because I want this outer one to spin as well as all the other layers, if I stuck this down, this wouldn't spin. So we do need to put something on the back as well. It can be a scrap. It doesn't need to be another piece the same. Let me find a scrap. So I've got some scraps just of the red I've been using left. And I'm just going to make sure that it's big enough for me to stick some foam tape on, but small enough that when I spin this, this isn't going to stick out. So this, I also need a hole through, so I should really have done that before I put the hole through. But because it's just a rough shape, I'm just going to roughly put a hole in the middle. So never worry, you can always stick your hole this piece as well. So it's not very, just get rid of that bit, it's annoying me. So now all we need is a brad. You can use your ugliest, most horrible brad because you'll never see it. So if you've got some that you want rid of, you know, in a mixed pack, or something that your children bought and they've never used. So these ones have got strange smiley faces and angry faces and things on, and my kids have never used them. So although they've got quite big heads, so I am actually just going to double check that this is not going to stick out. No, it's not. So when this spins, it's not going to stick out, so it's absolutely fine. So you put it through all your layers, and I use the smaller hole on the crocodile, so the legs on this are just about perfect size that they go in there and it spins without too much wobble, which is all you're worried about. So we've not got our top piece on yet, and I just need some foam squares or foam tape that's just slightly thicker or about the same thickness as the head of my brad. So I've got the hidden brad on the top layer, and then all these, and as you can see, because we inlaid our little die cuts back in, hopefully you can see that on the layers it doesn't stick up above, so it's not getting caught on anything. So that was a technique I was trying to show you, that I thought, oh, there's a better way, but obviously you need a die to be able to do that of your image. So our last step is just to pop some foam pads, foam tape, whatever you've got, on the back of here. Just make sure that your little legs on your brad can still spin. So I'm just making sure that my outer layer, as I drop this down, is lined up with my backing. So here we go, all going to work, hopefully all going to spin nicely. Yes, it does. Nothing's getting caught, look. It all spins. We don't have to have our bride showing in the middle. So I would send this mixed up. And as you can see, we've got the alternating red and green. So we've stuck with reds and greens. But hopefully you can see it's not really obvious. I know it's gnomes, but it's not really obvious when it's mixed. And it still looks quite cool with the star shapes. And that's why I like these stars, because it still looks interesting when it is mixed up. And I've done them with gold sticking out underneath. I've done them with glitter papers. You know, if you've got scraps of speciality papers, you can put all sorts in the layers to make them a bit more interesting. And I'll link that video where I've done that before. So there we go. There they are when they're all made up. I think I could probably have put a flatter brad in the middle, so my middle layer sticks up a bit much. You live and learn, don't you? But you can still tell what they are when the puzzle's done. And I think, like I said, I'm just going to grab one of my pre-done greetings. I thought I had a nice long one. So these are, I think they're the tailored expression ones that you cut loads out at once. So I'm just going to pop that along the bottom there, and just make sure that anything you've got sticking up especially doesn't interfere with your mechanism. So if you do add anything around the edges, if you're raising it on foam tape, just make sure it's low enough that it won't interfere. So there we go. We've got our little gnome spinning puzzle card with all done in our shades of red and green. So I've used up scraps of red and green in the layers. So these were actually the offcuts from my elf cards that I did the other day. I've got a piece of pattern paper, my little coloured in gnomes, and it's really cute. So there's the two cards I did for you today. So same colour palette, completely different really. So we've got a stencil background and then we've got a pattern paper background, but once I'd managed to get my glitter encapsulated, I could equally have used this to make a spinning puzzle card as well as this one. And I do like the star because I do like the layers that you can make different colours show in between. So I think that's really fun. And really great idea for kids' cards. There are tons of these little gnome styled stamps out there. These are just the ones that I happen to have in my stash. Great for kids. And yeah, if you like the extra idea of, you know, giving them something a bit more fun, I like the puzzles and I like the stars. They're a lot more forgiving than the circles, because if you don't get it lined up perfectly, you can still get it to work. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.